Welcome to Weekly Ways to Better Days, episode 36. I am my healer. In this episode, I chat with Kelsey about her chronic pain and her injury that has led to her experiencing chronic pain and her ability to shift her mindset to help mitigate some of the suffering and overcome the mindset shifts and all of the mental struggle that came along with this injury. And so I know this is going to be so fruitful for you. I know it's going to be so inspiring for those that suffer from chronic pain. So thank you for joining us and have a good rest of your day. Hello. So, welcome. This is my dear friend Kelsey, who I have known since, I guess, middle school. And life has brought us back together in weird ways throughout our adult life. And we reconnected about a year ago. Yeah, about a little over a year ago. And
Over a year now,
yeah, and connected just kind of on similar journeys as far as our own personal growth. And I really admire her because she has been through a lot and has overcome a lot and has grown so much as a human being. So I will let her kind of tell you a little bit about herself. Kelsey, go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. So my name's Kelsey Sullivan. I'm a registered nurse. I became a nurse in 2017. And I have had holistic experience and natural healing experience, healing myself and having a holistic doctor and all of those things basically my whole life. And so I wanted to be, I looked up to my holistic doctor and it just seemed really intimidating to be a doctor. So I was just like, I'll just be a nurse. And I remember when I told her and she was like, what? Why don't you be a doctor? And I was like, no, like this is good. So I became a nurse and just kind of seemed like different than the other nurses. I dove into all the vaccine information and back in 2014, and I became very vocal about that. And at the time, it was like very rare. I was getting tons of backlash and all that stuff. And I just knew it was my truth that I wanted to share. And I just love how now it's like, it's coming out more and more. And I'm just like, and speaking of me and you connecting again, I've just connected with so many people who have had similar views and thank the internet for that, for like, putting out who you're all about and then being like, oh, I connect with that. Like, and just becoming friends with people who have similar views, which is just so empowering and amazing. So, yeah, so then I've struggled with chronic pain for a long time. And at the time, it was just something that I kind of dealt with. Like people I knew didn't really, people I knew, but like say like my coworkers didn't really know that I was in chronic pain. I just kind of kept it to myself and just was like mind over matter and just always, I just like, I've always been just like a really strong person and almost like too much, almost to a fault. But I didn't know that at the time, like, suppressing my emotions and just like, oh, I'm stronger than this. And oh man. just like saying that out loud now is just so funny because we're all human. We all need to take care of ourselves. We can't handle the world on our shoulders. I know that now, but I've learned a lot. So, I just want to get into my story here. Is that cool?
Yeah, let's go.
So from being a bedside nurse, and this was during COVID. And so, yes, it was, the hospital scene was as traumatizing as the news was showing at the time. We had two really high peaks where we were in emergency mode At one point, we didn't even have to chart on the computer, because it was like I think I went to 6 COVID patients, and it was just keep them all alive. That was the shift. And so they were also there was like big bonuses to do extra shifts, and it was like really hard to turn down that amount of money. So I was working overtime, and my neck just started hurting so bad. And what I came to find out is I have lordosis, which is a forward curve. And so it wasn't just a normal neck ache, which I thought at the time. And so it was to the point where I was like, I got to my car and I was just crying. And my holistic doctor was like, "Oh, why don't you quit your job?" And I just thought that was insane. I was like, "What? Like, you mean the thing that I've been working for over 10 years for? That is what you want me to quit?" And so it went from me freaking out one week to the next week kind of starting to consider it. I was like, I want to hit my 3-year mark, because I'm one of those people who, if I say I'm going to do something, I've got to do it. I don't quit things. And for whatever reason, I had this thought that I needed to make it 3 years. So I keep working, and I was just in this place where I was so desperate that I wasn't even listening to myself, and I was just doing what anybody recommended. And so somebody recommended I go to a chiropractor. And so I went to one, and then I was still in pain, and then someone else recommended another one. So I went to that one, and he ended up injuring me, but over and over again, repeatedly. But I didn't know it at the time because I was in so much chronic pain that I couldn't tell the difference between what I was experiencing and like something else, you know? And I was telling him that I was in more pain, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like that can happen." And he was like, "Maybe you have an autoimmune, maybe you should go to like this doctor." And so I kept going to him for probably, I think it was like 2 months or something. And he threw off my hyoid bone. So I know a lot of people, it's not a bone we talk about a lot, but it's like a horseshoe bone in your throat. It's the only bone in your body that's a floating bone. It's not attached to anything else, any other bone, I mean. And it got injured, and it was literally jabbing me in the throat. Like, and I know people will say, "Oh, like something feels like," no, it was literally. And so at this point, I was like bedridden. And I was able to, like, at the time, get help to the point where it kind of reset a little bit, and to the point where I was functioning again. And so I just kind of kept going about the same routine and just being in pain and all that. And then in July, someone recommended another chiropractor. And I said, "Okay, I don't want anyone touching my neck." Because at this point I kind of realized that he had injured me. And so 2 people recommended this chiropractor, and I was like, all right. So I go and I tell him, like, "Don't touch my neck." He does x-rays. I'm laying face down, and he has an activator, which I didn't know what that was at the time. And I'm laying down facing the right, and he says, "Oh, I see this part out of alignment. Can I use the activator on it?" And this was like on my neck. And I had told him, "Don't touch my neck." And and I was like, again, in that desperate spot. And I was like, "Well, is that going to hurt my throat?" Because I told him I had, the injury. And he was like, "I don't know." And I just said, "Okay." And he did it. He put the activator on that spot on my spine, which shot my spine forward, which was out of place. At the time, I didn't know that. And my throat instantly started hurting. And so I went back to work, and because of my spine being forward, my just whole neck went out of balance and it started spasming to the point where it was closing up my throat. Again, literally, not just like, oh, I'm anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was at work and I remember like almost passing out a couple of times. And at the time we had to wear masks. And so I was crying under my mask. Nobody knew it. And that I knew that was the last shift. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I texted my coach and he like helped me out with that. And I remember walking out and I was like, this is it. I'm done. And so I went on medical leave at that point and was still experiencing the spasms to the point where I went to urgent care and I needed to get muscle relaxers. And you know me, I'm not one to take medication if I don't, or just ever, but I needed it. So I was taking muscle relaxers and I was getting different treatments and stuff like that. And believe it or not, that same chiropractor, because I had bought a package. And so I kept going to him and he caused me to make my situation worse again by putting this like block under my head, under my neck. And so it like, then my throat started clicking. And I hadn't been swallowing, I still can't swallow properly, but I hadn't been swallowing properly since like the first injury. And so I go to my doctor and I'm bawling, right? And she was kind of a new doctor. So it's so hard because like my mom knows that if I'm saying I'm quitting work, I've never not worked since I was like 15 years old. And I'm bawling every day, that's something seriously wrong. So doctors don't know that because like,
Right.
you know, people have different thresholds. And so I'm telling her, I'm like, my hyoid bone is out of place. And she's like, no, if that happened, you wouldn't be able to swallow correctly and you would have trouble breathing. And I was like, yeah, exactly.
That's my
And
life right now.
so she was like, no, you just have TMJ. And like, I probably did have TMJ, but that wasn't the issue. She's like, oh, you know, just ice it. And so, and she gave me, I think 2 weeks off work at that point. And she also said, I'm not going to give you work off unless you take these antibiotics. Because she said I had some kind of like sinus problem or something. And I'm like, okay. So I got the antibiotics. I didn't take them. But, and so I was like, oh no, she like doesn't believe me. So what I really want to focus on here is the realization that doctors aren't gods. They don't always know how to help you. They don't always know what's wrong with you. And they're not going to say that. They're not going to say, I don't know. So this may look like it's in your head. You're being dramatic. Just, you know, go home and ice it and you'll be fine. Just the list goes on. Or being almost like just I wanted to say like passive aggressive, but not that, just like giving you an attitude and like wanting you out the door just because they know that they don't know how to help you, but they can't tell you that. And this like can really screw people up mentally by not understanding this. And so so she refers me to a ear, nose, and throat, an ENT specialist. And so ear, nose, throat, you would think he would know what, you know, what's going on with me. No, he put the little, you know, thing up my nose, down the camera into my throat and was like, everything looks fine. And it's like, yeah, because that's not the problem. Like I have an injury. And he didn't know how to help me. He actually kicked me and my mom out of his office. Wow. Because we were like, we needed answers and he wasn't helping us. And we were like, well, who can help us? And he didn't know. And so my mom had been researching and threw out this doctor's name from a head and neck specialist from UCLA who knew about hyoid bone syndrome, like injuries to the hyoid bone, since it's so rare.
Mm-hmm.
And so he gave us a referral to that doctor, which was very surprising. But so I go to that doctor, and sure enough, my hyoid bone is out of place. And I'm so glad that that was documented, because that was how I was able to actually take a year off work, because, you know, they need like a physical reason. You can't just say,
Right.
I feel this way. So he offered a surgery. And at this time, I had realized that I was not going to do anything if I didn't feel like it was right for me. And I remember going into that day, like, if he recommends a surgery, I don't care what the doctor's saying. I don't care what my mom's saying. It has to feel right for me.
Mm.
And so he recommends the surgery where he would cut off part of my hyoid bone on the right side so that it would, you know, not be in the way of the cartilage, which is causing the clicking and all that. So, and I also have like the spine injury as well. So it's like two different injuries at the same time. And it didn't feel right. And so I just said, no, like, I'm just gonna try to see what I can do on my own. And like, they were okay with it. You know, my mom respected my choice with that. And then I was getting some structural integration work done as well. And but again, since my spine was still forward, I was still having the spasms.
Really quickly, what is structural integration? Like, what is?
Oh, okay. Structural integration is where they kind of morph and move your fascia, because your
Okay.
fascia gets kind of like in, like, you know, when you see people who do a certain thing all the time and their body kind of gets stuck like that,
Mm-hmm.
it's like unwinding the fascia in your body and everything. So
Okay.
it's awesome. So that's what, yeah, but at the time, because my spine was off and then I got structural integration, it put me into this spot where I could barely swallow. Like, I had to pull down to be able to swallow. And I mean, like, your throat is your lifeline. This is
Right.
breathing. If you can't swallow, like, you're in the hospital. Like,
Right.
so, you know, I was terrified. And it was to the point where my mom's like, we needed to go to the ER. And so I was like, all right. And again, I sat there for 5 hours. I was treated very poorly. My heart rate was 130 because I felt like I couldn't breathe and I couldn't swallow properly. You know, it was even worse than it was before. And they didn't really have any, and I was like, so basically you can't help me and you need to move on to someone else because I'm not dying. And they were like, yeah. And I was like,
Wow.
okay. And then, but before he sent me out, he's like, well, I can't send you out with your heart rate at 130. What are you, anxious or something? And I was like, oh, wow. Like, yeah, like, again, just not even understanding like what the heck is going on. So, I was able to get my heart rate down. They wouldn't give me, like, I wanted like a sleeping pill. I wanted like anxiety medication. They wouldn't do that. All they could give me was Norco, which I didn't want. And so that was, after all of that, that's when I really realized, I'm like, nobody really like can fix me here. Like, I felt so alone as far as like the medical establishment with what was going on with me. And I was like, that was when I really realized that I needed to figure this out myself. And again, this two things have really pushed me to where I am right now as far as becoming a holistic health coach and helping other people with this same situation. Because like, honestly, go get checked out medically, like, please
Mm-hmm.
do. But if it's the people who have done that and there's nothing for them there, those are the people that I want to help, because I've experienced this trauma of just being so alone and like feeling like neglected from them. And so the second thing too was feeling like I couldn't take care of myself. I hated that feeling. And so I've like really pushed myself now to like never be in that position. So anyways, so back to, so then I was, yeah, so the ER spot was where I really hit bottom, and I really realized all of that. Cause like I feel like as a kid growing up, it was like, oh, if something's wrong with you, if you have an emergency, you call 911 and then you're all fixed and you walk out with a lollipop and
Yeah, life's good
to go. And so that was a really hard realization that was not the case. And so to continue the story, I felt there was a specific structural integration healer in San Diego, and that's what felt like what the right next step was. And my holistic doctor, my mom, was like, you know what, maybe you should just give it a rest, stop doing anything, and just like, maybe you're doing too much. And I'm like, no, I need to go to him. And so she drove me to San Diego, and it ended up being like a prayer answered. Like, it was like God brought me to him, because he didn't charge me. I'm not going to mention his name because of that, but and it was like, why would he not charge me, and like now I know, I really feel like it was like an answered prayer, because he really helped me. He got me out of where I was at that time. And then he led me to another structural integration person who I now see, she lives closer. And she recommended, get this, another chiropractor. And I was like, absolutely not. And before she even finished the word, and she's like, no, like I understand. I was like, no. And so it took a while, but she brought it up again. And I talked to a couple people who went to him, and he was different, like really different. He does the Blair method. Right now, I would say that he's the only kind of chiropractor I would recommend to anybody. And so finally it felt right. I'm like, okay, this guy feels right. This is insane. I took a Ativan before I went to him because to handle another correction. And so he did like $350 worth of x-rays, just completely knew how everything was. And he does the table drop method. And I think he did the pediatric table drop method on me, so that it was even lighter of a experience. And so it's not a crack. It's like a gentle placement of putting your spine back. He even had a protractor, like it was all legit. And so I'm like, well, here we go. I'm just gonna go for it. And so he made 4 corrections, and the spasm stopped.
Wow.
From right after that. And I hadn't experienced them like that anymore, which was amazing. And that was the 4th chiropractor of the year. And again, the only one I will go to now. I know it sounds so funny, but so he was able to actually get the spine back more, so that those stopped, which again, that was another thing that was hard for me, was like people being like, thinking it was anxiety or in my head, or I'm like, no. Like you don't, I'm very mentally strong. It was not just that. So yeah, that's basically, so now we're talking not this past December, but the December before that was when that happened. And that became my upward process in this journey. Besides, and it was very interesting, because my coach pointed out that I kept he's like, you realize that you're just in this state of like continuing to injure yourself and like, you know, going off of anxiety and fear and making decisions off of that. And I was like, oh, and that was hard for me to comprehend and understand. And so, like I said, with the upward journey of healing started there, where I started only doing things that felt right to me. And yeah, so I'm just gonna let you kind of, I know that was kind of a lot, but I want you to kind of come in and see what you think.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I'm curious about is what led to you really deciding to tap into yourself? What was that moment where you're like, no, I need to listen to myself now? Like, what if you remember exactly, because that's now where you're at, where you're letting that lead you through your journey of healing? Because I think so many people are kind of out of touch with that. Like we feel it, but we allow other people to dictate like what we're doing still. So what if you can like really remember, what was that like moment for you when you just decided like, no, I'm not doing anything that doesn't feel right? Like what went through your head? What made you make that switch?
It was realizing that the people pleaser mentality was not a good thing. It was realizing the trial and error of doing what people wanted me to do that didn't feel right, and seeing how that played out over and over again, and then seeing what trusting myself and going that route, what that did for me as well. So it was kind of like trial and error and seeing it for myself and trusting myself. And I feel like you were a part of that too, with helping me when you finally told me like, you know, you're not going, like, stop seeking it out here. Like you need to find it inside yourself. And a lot of these realizations are not easy to take in. They're not easy to, it's not easy to just like be vulnerable and allow somebody to see something from an outside perspective that may not, like, because you're so in it, in your emotions and everything that you're going through. And so by just listening to what other people have to say and like letting it sink in, even if it bothers me at that moment, that's how all that came about. And it was also being in survival mode and needing to figure it out. Mm-hmm. So that was what kind of led me that, which now I think, learning about, you know, when you're taking a test and you read the question and the answer immediately comes out at you, mm-hmm. and then you second guess yourself and pick something else. There's actually science behind that, of why, you know, it's telling you the answer right there, mm-hmm. and then you're second guessing yourself. So the same thing happens with every decision that you make. Like, you know the answer, just don't play off into fear and all of that. So yeah,
that's so it's interesting. Do you think that as you do that, as you listen to it, does it feel like you have less resistance to allowing yourself to like trust yourself through the process? Like the more that you do it, like, because I notice within myself, the more that I listen to that, the louder it gets, the easier it is to listen to, the smoother the transitions are of me, like just doing what I feel is right for myself. I feel like it's kind of like a muscle being built. Like, do you feel that as well?
Absolutely, 100%. Yep. When you start, because then you're able to trust it more, because you're like, oh, that's that feeling again when I chose to go this way and that worked out, and I chose to, and then that's that feeling again where I knew it wasn't right and I did it anyway, and this was the result. So yes, it's absolutely a muscle. And I have gotten to the point now where I'm very, very in tune with my body, to the point where if I am verbally getting emotions out. I can feel it in my body. One time it was to the point where it was out, like the emotions were coming out and I'm like, oh, they're still in my ankle. The feeling is still in my ankles. I've got another thing to say. Mm-hmm. And then I said, that came to me, I said it, and then it was released from my ankles. It's so cool, like to be so in tune with yourself and your body and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then my next question was, did you experience like, maybe like, how did you deal with because I think we all kind of build shame around those times when we didn't listen to ourselves. So like, I think that this is a really big thing that people deal with. I've dealt with it so many times where you don't listen to your intuition or your gut or whatever that is. And then you like look back in hindsight and you're like, fuck, I should have listened to that. Like, how did you deal with that process of it? Because I feel like a lot of people, that's where they get stuck and they like beat themselves up over and over again.
Mm-hmm. And I did that.
Yep. Yeah,
we do. Because it went in my head constantly. Like if I didn't go to this chiropractor, if I listened to myself, then I wouldn't be in the place that I'm in right now. And like I said, it repeated over and over and over again. I forgave myself out loud. I forgave the chiropractors, which I never told them, either of them, that they injured me, by the way, because that would be a whole nother podcast. But
we can do it one day.
So yeah, that kept repeating, and then I just realized, it was the realization that wasn't going to help me. I'm here now. I made the choices that I made. And people would even tell me like, like this happened for a reason. This pain's for a reason. It made me so mad.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. At the time. But I felt too like I wasn't ready to hear that, but it was simmering somewhere. Mm-hmm. I'm glad I didn't act out on the fact that I was so frustrated about that, because I'm glad the people told me what they told me.
But you showed it on your face.
Yeah, it was definitely hard. And to this day, I would still, if I went back in time, I wouldn't do this all over again. It's horrible, but I am a completely different person because of it. So I am super strong to help other people. I wish and I hope that I can still get to 100% where like everything I say that if I was 100% right now, then I would say that everything I went through was worth it. It's just hard when like it's still a injury that I haven't fully resolved, of why I would go back and change things. So, but I cannot. And, like Byron Katie, the author of Loving What Is, really helped. I remember hearing on the Brooke Castillo podcast, she talked about how Byron Katie said, like, if I was blind, I love blind. And I'm like, what? Like, how could you love to be blind? And so I was like, okay, I love this throat injury. I love it. Did I truly feel it? No, but I'm getting somewhere. So to answer your question fully, it was that, but also again, realizing what is going to heal me and push me forward is not to be in shame and guilt about this, not to be in resentment of people, take accountability for myself and like the choices that I made, and let it go to the best of my ability and learn from it, help other people, and realize that is what's going to heal me, and not staying in that place of all those feelings. And what really helped with the feelings is seeing it on a graph of like jealousy, resentment, all those things at the bottom, unforgiveness, and then seeing like neutral, and then seeing gratitude and love and forgiveness and all that at the top of the scale. And just knowing that at this part is where the most healing happens. And so to remember that.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful, because for instance, is like taking ownership is so much different than blaming, right? Because they're so vibrationally different. So like blaming yourself or blaming other people like keeps you in that shame spiral, but like taking ownership of like, okay, this was a choice I made this choice to not listen to myself, and this is the result, like taking the emotional aspect out of it, it almost then is empowering, right? Because it like turns it around to like, okay, so then it shows me that I have control to do things the way that feel good for me, and I'm the one that gets to choose to do that. And I think I've witnessed that with you, where you've made that shift, and I think that's like a very powerful shift to make. And I think for anybody listening that's in a space where they're like feeling, especially when you are physically hurt, because it adds a layer to the mental, like already the mental struggle that's going on. And so I feel like I really think it's important for people to understand the difference between taking ownership and blaming yourself, because like you were saying, like on that scale, blame is going to really like make you feel negative, and it's going to make you feel disempowered. And so I think like that's such a powerful thing for you to notice, because when you're dealing with physical pain, it's like, I think we've talked about this before. It's like you're already suffering physically. So it's like, let's relieve the mental like suffering, right? Because when you're mentally suffering, it magnifies the pain too. And so it's like, well, you may not be able to control the physical suffering right now, but what you can control is the mental suffering. And that's like the whole Byron Katie thing, loving what is. If I was blind, I would love it, because she's like, you're just really wanting to love what is the reality. And we cause so much suffering by wishing that the reality wasn't the reality. And it's not that when you accept the reality that suddenly like the physical pain goes away, but the emotional pain goes away a lot more. Like, did you get that? Like, did you feel
Oh my
that?
gosh, I have so much to say about that actually. So this is a very hard topic, because when people can say it, I don't want to say it wrong. It could be taken the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
So there's emotions and there's physical pain. They do come together. No, I do not believe you should tell anybody it's all in your head. However, I did notice the link, especially with the throat and the spasming and the tightness. When I was emotionally in a good place, it was better. And when I was emotionally in a bad place, it was worse, the physical aspect of it. And so I was like, wow, so there is part of this that I can control. And I have made my life so amazing, kind of because of this physical pain, where just like you said, like, okay, there's some things that I can't control, and that's that I have this physical pain, but I can control the level of it. I can control everything else that's going on in my life. And so for a couple of the things, I now have restrictions for work, and I was able to get in this position at the hospital that I really enjoy. It's not stressful. I love the people I'm working with. And I'm like, I didn't even know this existed. I'm like, you could be a nurse and not stressed out. Like, what? So, and I also, it's part-time because that's part of my restrictions as well. So I work 2 12-hour shifts a week. And that has just really helped. I also did a 7-month holistic nurse coach program. So now I'm a holistic nurse coach. And I want to get into relationships here too. I am not going to handle any kind of unnecessary emotional pain. It doesn't make sense. is that to say that if I was in a relationship that the moment it's something's emotional that I'm going to run away? No, but I'm saying, is it worth it? Is it mostly emotional pain, or, like, what's the scale here? So, like, I am single, and I have quickly gotten out of, like, say if I'm dating someone, I have quickly gotten out of it if there's red flags, if it's not what I want, if it doesn't align with me, instead of people pleasing and just like worrying about what other people think, and like staying in something just because, like, oh, he got me a gift, or, oh, I think, it might hurt his feelings if I say I don't want to date him anymore. Like, all of that is just like out. I am focusing on myself. I am very aware of my emotional vibration and energy. And yes, so not only does being in gratitude and love and happiness help, but it's like, it's almost like, it's kind of funny, but I'm like forced to do that because it feels better.
Yeah.
Physically. So that's truly an amazing thing. And I just got off of a 9-day all raw fruits and vegetable cleanse, which today is technically day 10 because I'm still doing it because it feels so good. And so I'm also able to control my pain level with what I put in my body. So yeah, I mean, the fact that I could just be on this podcast right now and just be so like happy and not even worry about my pain is, I can't believe I've gotten to this point. And I was also able to separate the mind and spirit and the body. Like, it's if you can separate it and you can know that you're always like whole and complete in the spiritual realm, that has been like a huge game changer for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, to touch on that, it's pretty powerful to be sitting here with you and know you on many different levels, right? We've coached together, you're my friend, we've experienced a lot together, and to see this version of you, to be able to have you on here speaking about it with a smile on your face, like really like understanding the power that you do have and sitting in the power that you do have and not discounting the pain or your experiences, right? Like, I think it's such a powerful thing to see and experience, because I've been on kind of the other realm with you where you weren't in that space. And so it's like, I wouldn't have had Kelsey a year ago on the podcast because I would have been like, this isn't like, we would have been more, it would have been a different story, which is a beautiful story too, and has led you here. But it's just like, this is so empowering to see. And it's almost like you've mentioned not like being a people pleaser anymore. And like, I think we talked about that quite like probably about a year ago, about how this whole situation has gotten you out of people pleasing, right? Like, and has changed that. And of course, we are not saying, oh, I wish that someone would get an injury so that they would like stop people pleasing and mentally become like mentally empowered and do all the work that you've done. But if we're looking at it from like a true standpoint, like, that has granted you the opportunity, not to say that you wish that upon anyone or you would do it again, but like, how powerful is that too, to see like this whole shift that has happened in you, that you probably would have been suffering emotionally if you weren't suffering physically, because you weren't in the space that pushed you to get here. And so like, that's such a powerful thing to look at as well. And like, again, not discounting the pain that you're in and saying that you would want to do this again to get to the emotional place that you're at, because you could have gotten there probably without it. But to take something that is such a hard thing to deal with and have such a beautiful experience is like, to me, from the outside perspective, is like so powerful. Like, so powerful. And it's like, I think a lot of other people, because like, I mean, and I don't know, I haven't really discussed this much, but like, I mean, my mom, before she passed away, she was in constant physical pain. And I watched her just like allow that to really dictate a lot of her life, which is fascinating because she was in bed for years straight, but then when her and my dad split and it was like time for her to like do something, at one point she ended up getting a job. She got a job at like Osh, and then she got a job at like Staples. And it was like this was like such a mind-blowing thing to me because it was like, wait, you probably could have done this before and still been in pain, not like discounting the pain that you're in, but you probably could have not spent, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 years in bed. Like, and so like, of course, there's moments where like you stay in bed and like it's called for, but like I see so much power in that because I have been a witness to that. I mean, I also myself had suffered from chronic pain for like years at a time in different ways, but not nowhere near as the intensity as you did, right? Like it was more like digestive migraines, but it was like there every day. Um, but it's like, so I've been in a little bit of it myself, and I've watched other people like day in and day out. And so for me, I like look at this and I just see so much power in the way that you have handled it and how you have like done everything that you could. Cause like you could have easily gone the route, which a lot of people do, is just you could have gone to pain management, right? Like you totally could have gone to pain management. That's what my mom did. And then just have like a whole pharmacy and just coping with the pain and taking pills constantly and then dealing with all of the side effects of the pills that you're taking and all that stuff, right? And so like I feel like I'm not shitting on people that do that. I'm not like discounting what people are going through, but like I know that if someone who like I can't even imagine experiencing what you have experienced with your throat and that kind of pain, because like you said, like swallowing, drinking, breathing, like all like the things that keep us alive is what
Yeah.
triggers the pain. And so I think like for anyone out there listening is like there may be another way for you. Like, and you didn't stop and you're still not stopping, right? You're still doing things to try and like continue this journey, but like you just kept continuing, you kept having faith, you kept trying things that felt right and aligned, and you didn't just settle for like, okay, this is where I'm at and I'm just going to go to pain management now. And I think that too is so powerful. And like, I don't know, that was that an option for you?
Um, I didn't even uh it wasn't an option for me because of me. I don't take any pain medication. I don't take ibuprofen, Tylenol, nothing, nada. And um it's because okay, sure, if you have something acute, something like a headache and you want to get rid of it, but when it's a chronic condition, I'm like, okay, so what does that mean? Does that mean I'm going to be taking medication every day? Well, your pain threshold diminishes as you continue taking medication. And at the same time, it's not suitable for long time use. It really shouldn't be. And also, when you're not taking it and you're in pain, the pain is a motivator to do something about it. And that's when where my diet comes in. Like people tell me all the time, like, how do you have the discipline to eat the way that you do? Like all my coworkers, when I have my smoothies, like, oh, you're so healthy. Oh, I want to lose weight. How do you do it? Well, it's like, well, I could either live in hell or I can try to do something about it. And making smoothies every day feels like less hell than the pain. So, yeah. And another thing that I wanted, when you're in a really hard place and like, there's like these one, like a mentor or somebody can say this one thing and it just sticks with you. And by the way, I've had so much beautiful support through this. And that's another reason why I am now that support for other people, because it's what got me through this, not doctors, as you heard my experience with that. It was the true healers that want to make a difference in this world. So thank you for doing what you do. And yeah, it's huge. So I first of all, praying and going to church and my faith has been a very big part of this too. And one of my good friends' mom, who I had seen at like, some baby showers, and I was in her daughter's wedding. So I had seen her a couple of times. We were not very close. She became like my mentor through this. And what I'm noticing too is the people who have had very severe struggles and have gotten out of it are the ones who reach out to people struggling. Mm-hmm. Like you, the person I'm talking about, my friend Amber, who went through hell and back, because there's this understanding of it, and just like, oh gosh, they just know, you guys just know what it's like to suffer, no matter what kind of suffering it is. So anyway, I just remember her, and when her suffering was like a breathing problem. I don't know if it was asthma or what it was. And she told her mom, like, I can't breathe. Like, what am I going to do? And her mom said, you know what? Sometimes you just got to move on not being able to breathe then. And I know that's so simple, but that just stuck with me, because that's why I'm like, I can't swallow properly. Like, and that's just it. You just have to keep going. And like, and at the time I didn't know it was going to be this huge, like, thing that was going to like stick with me, but it just did, because now I'm seeing what continuing to show up and continuing to move forward has done in the past 2 years. And I'm really excited to see how that keeps evolving and continuing.
Yeah, that's super powerful. And I love that you talk about support, because I think that that's something, no matter what you're going through, leaning into the right people, right? It's like, it has to be the right people, because it's a very slippery slope, especially when you're in a vulnerable state, whether it be physically or emotionally. Like, you really want people that are going to make you feel seen, but aren't going to keep you in a victim mentality, right? Which is hard, because when we're in that space, it's like we want the little lovies and we want to be validated, and like that's what feels good in the moment. Like, that's what's like, okay, but the reality is that's not what makes us feel good in the long run. It's like hearing something like, yeah, well, like, sometimes you just got to keep going when you can't breathe. And you're like, shit, what do you mean? Like, yeah. I don't want to keep going. But it's like, yeah, because when you have that sort of perspective, it's like, okay, then I just got to keep going. Like, and it gets you to the next moment. And I think, I know for me, and even me and you, it was like, there were times where because I'm just the way that I am. There were times where I said things and I just watched your expression just be like, kind of like you were like, fuck you, Katie, get out of here, and like, but I knew it was like coming from a place of love, like, because it wasn't ever coming from a place of like malice, or it was always coming from like this heart that I know I have. And I know you didn't see it at the moment, and it was like hard. And I know you've experienced that in other realms with other people too. But like, I mean, you have this like willingness to take it, though, like, even though you're like not into it, you'll take it, you'll like sit there, and it's almost like taking a beating, even though it's not a beating. It's like it's like a warm hug beating. Like, it's like, I mean, you're like, I don't want this right now, but I'll take it and I'll sit with it. And I think that's pretty powerful as well in your journey of healing, and the willingness to like hear others, because when we're in our own shit, it's like our voice is so loud. It's so loud. And so when you can just hear others, and you may be like, fuck you don't know what I'm going through, but then like you sit on it, it's like, then their voice becomes a little bit louder, and then it's like, oh wait, hold on, okay, let's see where can I find truth in this? Where can I find like, a spot where it resonates? And I think I've seen you do that. I've done that plenty of times. I mean, there's plenty of times where I've like heard things and I'm like, fuck off. Like I remember when my older sister told me that I was a victim and I was like, I could punch you right now. Like literally, like I could punch you right now. What do you mean? Like, do you know my life story? Of course I'm a victim. But not a victim because I'm so strong. But I had this victim mentality. And I remember her saying that to me and it just stung. Oh, it
Mhm.
fucking
Oh
stung.
yeah. And things you have said have stung for sure. I highly recommend to anybody listening to just let people say, I mean, as long as it's not like abuse or anything,
Right.
but if there is their opinion, just let them say it. And you can say, okay, even if you don't resonate, even if you don't agree. There are times when you or my coach will say things to me, and weeks, months, a year later, it's like, bing, oh, that's what they were saying. I totally see it now. And then, yeah, that way, like, you didn't get in an argument with them. They still feel like they can freely express themselves to you when something comes up. And you get amazing advice, whether you don't understand it for however long it takes. Because
Yeah.
there really truly is something in what other people are seeing. It's very powerful, and it can be very healing if you do just let it in. And maybe some things never resonate with you, and that's fine. Like you're just listening to what people have to say, and that's it. You don't need to be defensive about it. And like I know, like with me and you, I feel like you still feel comfortable telling me anything, because like even if I whether like we can laugh about it now,
Yeah.
how I was just like, I would never like cuss at you, you know that, but
No, I know.
you like, you saw the face, and I was
I
just,
know the fuck you face.
I'm
You
like,
don't
can we just get off can we stop talking here? Like, you don't even know, like, yeah. And
yeah.
then the realization that I had, and this was a huge one for me, was I was like, in my head, I'm like, you're right, they don't know, and that's a good thing, because then they're able to get me out of what I'm in. Because if they were feeling the same pain that I was feeling, then they would be like, yeah, this does suck. Let's go like lay in bed for the rest of our
Let's
lives
go
and
cry
like,
together.
let's like, yeah, oh yeah, I know. Here's that one. Like, let's go cry. Like, let's just give up. Like, this is horrible. So that was a huge realization for me too. It was like those that are helping me, like, yeah, they don't understand, and that's a good thing. And that was a huge one for me too.
That's really powerful, right? Because I think most people feel like when they're going through something that most people don't understand them. And they use it to like an alienation thing, right? Like, so they feel alienated and then they utilize it to stay where they're at. And the reality of it is like, of course, we don't understand exactly what you're going through, but most of the people that are offering you this sort of advice have endured some sort of suffering. So they know what it's like to suffer. And so it's like they're coming at it with like a loving place, from a loving place. And I do want to recommend, if someone is not coming from a loving place, tell them to go fuck themselves, because that's not what you want, right? Like that's not what you need. But like, when someone is coming from a loving place, and I would venture to say, I mean, I'll ask you, but most of these people that you have had these sort of tougher conversations with, they know what suffering is in some capacity, right?
Oh, and that's actually a really good point that you brought up. When I'm saying this, as far as take in what people are saying, have it be certain people who you are going to for advice. You like their advice. Like, for example, obviously my coach, I pay him to give me advice.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that's very important too. If there's somebody who makes you feel bad about yourself, and you don't really like resonate ever with their opinion, or it's just you don't like who they are as a person, I don't know, just pick those people who you do trust in order to like let them give you advice and then like have you and see it their way and then be able to like take that in. So yes, pick specific people. That was a really good point that you brought up.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think also like you don't want to be around people. Like there's plenty of people that will just give you shitty advice and make you feel like even more like shit. And it's like sometimes the things that people say that love you and are coming from a loving place don't always feel good. They feel crunchy. But it's like if you, I like what you say, like look at who they are. Like if you like them as a person, if you admire the way they live, or like take advice from those people, but don't just take anyone's advice, because that's like a crapshoot, and that's not going to be healthy. But like I do think there's so much power, and I think anyone on the like other end of this listening can really benefit from the idea of like, yeah, some of the best advice that you may ever get is going to feel crunchy and uncomfortable, but maybe ride with it, like sit with it and see where. I like this idea of like, where can you find truth in that? Like, right, Byron Katie, like she talks about that, like, where is it kind of true? Like where can you find truth? Or is it that, or it might be Brooke Castillo, one of them. I mean, a lot of their things kind of intertwine, but it's like, I think it's Brooke Castillo, like, okay, well, can you see truth in that? Like, and if you can, then what can you do with that so that it's like an empowering thing, you can change it. And yeah, so I mean, wow, you have such a fruitful story, and I know you're still on this journey of healing, but like what a beautiful place you are in mentally. And not to say that, I'm sure there's still times when you do struggle. And actually that would probably be like one of the last questions I want to ask is like, do you have moments where it does get heavier? And in those moments, what do you do to bring you back to a little bit lightness? Because if you're still experiencing physical pain, I'm sure there's still days or moments, right? So what is something that you do, or a few things, or how do you get back to this Kelsey?
Yeah, so let's see. Let me think about this one. Before, I had to reach out to someone for hope like every single day. I'm able to like self cope a lot better now, where I don't need to reach out to people as much. One thing I've allowed myself to do is let myself be upset for that day. If I, because it does suck. Like that's the reality of it. So one of the huge things is not, because what I noticed that I would do is that once I got into this bad state or this bad emotion, then I would think that I was going to be in that emotion for the rest of my life. So I'd start planning my whole life in that emotion. Like, how am I going to be a coach? How am I going to do a session with somebody when I can't even like get it together myself? And I'm just thinking all these things, and then that depresses me even more. And then I finally was like, you know what? You can just let yourself be in a terrible mood for a day, and that's okay. And tomorrow you could wake up being your happy self again. But just let yourself, like I just tell myself, like let myself sit in it and take in all that emotion and just be with it. And don't make it mean that don't make it mean that it's anything bad or that it's going to be like that forever. So that's one thing that I've learned to do, which is really helpful. Number two is when I do just want that loving sympathy, empathy, if I just want somebody new to hear me out, I'll go to church and I will ask for prayer from someone. And I can't believe how many people don't take advantage of this because they don't want to be in a vulnerable place. It is absolutely amazing and so therapeutic to just get it out. And that became the only place that I would really let out my tears is when I got prayed for and when I went to church, and that became like that space for me instead of it being every day. And so that is also very powerful too, because like they're very good at not, giving you their advice. They're like coming from a place of listening to what God has to say and being that like love for you through God and everything. So church has still been a very good place for me as well to let those emotions out, because they are still there. And even though I am very strong and I have been very productive and my mindset has been on point for the most part, we're all gonna have those times, and to just let myself, and that just really helps. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, we're human, right? Like allowing yourself to be human and to be supported in all the different facets that you need it. So like I love that. It's like that, like being at church is kind of like your warm like hug from like that, like the grandma that like it just like and sometimes you need that. You just need that warm, loving, just love and compassion, right? And like I love that you found that, and I think that those are great tips. And then lastly, what would Kels today tell Kels in the thick of it? Like what would you say, what advice would you give that you wish you knew in those moments that you know now?
Wow. Yeah. To trust my intuition, to listen to myself, to understand that I need to be healthy, whole, and complete to be able to take care of others. The whole take care of yourself before others thing, that is huge and very powerful. Because as I saw, I broke down and I wasn't able to take care of people anymore because I wasn't taking care of myself. And that your health is one of the most important things, and to never take it for granted, because you never know when something's going to happen, and to be very prepared and self-sufficient for if anything were to happen. I was in a very good place because I had my parents that were helping me out and all of that. Like have a savings, if the situation were to come where you were to lose everything, that you would still be okay. And another thing too is my identity is in me. It's not a nurse, it's not my job, it's not my friends, it's not anything. It's just my identity is me, not even my name. And when that is strong, nothing can really shake you, because you always have yourself.
That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think this idea that like so many people, like you ask them who they are and they list all the things that they do. I'm a mom, I'm a nurse, I'm a this, I'm a that. And it's like, no, but who are you? And like, for me, I like to respond, like, I am love. Like that's like, and I've come to realize that like very deeply, like that's what I am. I'm just like love. I am me, which is just love. Like that's, and the more I lean into that, it's like, oh, I can just be that love anytime, even when I'm not in the best space. Like I am love. That's it. That's what I am. And like, it's like, that's what I can be loved no matter what state my body is in, no matter where I'm at, no matter any of it. And I love that. I love that you like, what a good place to end that this beautiful conversation. And then lastly, the way that I like to end these episodes is talk about what they are going to be titled. So what do you think would be a good name for this episode?
Ooh.
The pressure's on.
It is the one question that stumps me here. Taking back your power, healing from within, or I don't know, what would go with that theme of what I was saying about not needing to, like, healing yourself. And even if a doctor doesn't understand you, or a doctor can't help you, just just being confident that you can heal and take care of yourself. It's such an amazing place. I'm trying to think of a name for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I mean, like, to me, it's like your power comes from within, like, your healing comes from within. Um, but like, I know I'm trying to think now, like, what encompasses that, right? Because that's like, because we give our power away by thinking that other people are going to heal us and in whatever capacity. And I think when you realize that no one can heal you, because really, like, you have to be a willing participant too. Like, even if doctors are helping you, or like you have a coach or whatever, like, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink it, kind of thing. And so it's like all within you. Hmm.
Did all the other ones stump you like this, or is it just mine?
No, I mean, it just depends, right? Like, and it could, I mean, it just, yeah, it just depends on, I mean, I've talked through it and then some have come like quick, but
Mhm.
let's
Being
see.
your own self-healer. Like one of those.
Yeah, like, I am my healer. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I like it. Because
Because you,
I'm reading a book right now called I Am, and it's amazing. And it's all about, you are what you say, you are what you believe. I am a healer, then that's what you are. So
yeah,
I have a very like, just the I am statement is very powerful for me because of that book. So yeah, that's a
I
good
like,
one.
I am my healer. Because I
Mhm.
believe that, right? I believe that. I think that you've owned that. I believe that for myself. I think that's a great name for this episode. I think it encompasses everything. It doesn't mean that you're not utilizing other people, but you wouldn't have gotten there if you didn't choose to go there. So I love that. I am my own. I am my healer. I love
I
it.
like it too. That's it. That's it.
Yay.
Are we gonna find it? Um,
Uh, so I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to do this, to be vulnerable, to share your story, to be open and willing to let others hear your story that has been quite a struggle for you, that you have overcome and that you still deal with, so that other people can find inspiration. And I know from the bottom of my heart that there is going to be people, even if it's just one person out there, that hears this story that allows them to approach their healing in a different way and to feel understood in a different way and to just really feel empowered. And I just am so grateful to know you. I'm so grateful to love you. And I'm so grateful to share this space with you and let other people hear what an amazing human you are and all that you have done to get yourself to this smiley, beautiful version of yourself that is able to talk about this in such a way that is fruitful for others. So, again, thank you, thank you, thank you for this. I appreciate you. I love you and I adore you.
oh, I love you too. Thank you for being with me through the struggle when I didn't even like know who I was. And thanks for coming out on the other end with me and being that person who understands more what I went through, because you literally guided me through it and helped me with it. You've just been such an amazing friend to me. And wow. And also, I really liked what you said about just, at least one person is going to resonate with them with this. And that was me crying my eyes out, seeing this one video on Instagram or this one thing that helped me pull myself together for that day. And it really is truly that powerful.
So let's tell them where they can find you, so that if anyone has, wants to follow your journey or wants, your own support from you as you are a coach,
Mhm.
where is the best place they can find you?
So I'm on Instagram, Natural Healing by Kelsey. So all spelt right? And you're gonna link it in
I'll
the
link it.
bio there. But yeah, and Kelsey is Kelsey. And if anybody has had a throat injury or a hyoid bone syndrome injury or anything like that, I'd love to hear from you because I still have yet to find anybody because it's that rare. So would love to hear from you. Or I would love to hear from anybody that this resonated with as well.
Yay! Okay, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And I just, again, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Katie. I love you.
Yes, I love you too.